Hello, it is I, Rick Priestley, once again. This time I'm here to tell you about my latest game. My latest game is something, it's unusual, but you know, cast your mind back to the 1960s. In the 1960s, all small boys, and I was one such, were obsessed by two things: dinosaurs and spaceships. And my latest game is not dinosaurs, it's spaceships. I wonder if I could do one with dinosaurs and spaceships. That's a thought, isn't it? But this time it's just spaceships, and it's called Space Battles, a Spacefarer's Guide. And it's been published by John Wombat Wargames, and it's available through Amazon. This is a game I put together, let's say, during a period when I wasn't feeling very well, so I just had something to do to keep my mind occupied, and I'd always wanted to design a spaceship game, and so I have. But what spaceship models do I have? I have loads. I have all sorts from years and years ago to quite modern ones. We'll see some of them in a moment. And I wanted to design a game that would just allow me to mess around with my spaceships, and I could play little scenarios, or I could play great big space battles. So how did I make a start? Well, I made a start by making a grid. So the easiest way to play a spaceship game is to have it gridded. And you can see here, this is the basic grid that I designed for it. And it's a 13 by 13. They're effectively squares, but I just put a dot in the middle of each square. And this gives us our movement system. So 1, 2, 3, for example. Now, people have asked, do I have to have a grid? And people have said, well, I've got a hexagon grid, can I use that? Answer, yes you can. The basic game as I've designed it uses a 13 by 13 square grid because that's what I found easy to do. And as I say, I was kind of stuck and not feeling very well, so I just did something that I found relatively easy, and to be honest, anyone could do. This is a commercial mat, but I started off with just a black piece of vinyl. And all I've done here is stick down little white dots, which you can buy from any stationers. The great thing about that is that you can then take the dots off and use it for anything else, or alternatively, you can keep them there or use paint. I painted the ones on my vinyl. So that's the basic setup, and as I say, it doesn't have to be this. It can be bigger, it can be any hex grid you've already got. I think you can even use distance measurement, but if you use distance measurement, you might have to make a few alterations. So what ships I used? Well, in general, I haven't used ships as big as this. These are the Eagle Moss ships from Star Trek. But the idea is that whatever ships you've got, if they're from the Star Trek universe, if they're from Battlestar Galactica, if they're ones from any commercial spaceship range that you might happen to own, you can use them, and that's what I did. And I went back and I dug out my old minifig spaceships, remember those from the 1970s, and I had ships from Leviathan, which are even older, and Skytrex, which are even older again, as well as more modern ones from the old Citadel range, and so on and so forth. And I've collected spaceship models all my life, so you know, I've got quite a few, and all I had to do was divide them into sizes. So basically small, medium, large and massive, and as long as they fitted within those four categories, the rules accommodate it. It doesn't really matter what background is, because it's if there's something specific to a background, like a cloaking device, then you can add that in. The basic core system is anybody and anything. And that's what I've done. And what I'm going to do next is show you how the core system works. So how does this game work then? Well, let's have a look. We'll need two sets of playing cards, one black set and one red set. Now, one side will take the black, one side will take the red. In this case, let's imagine that the USS Enterprise is going to be black and the Klingons are going to be red. First thing, Klingon's going to take the first turn, and this is a spaceship. As I say, we divide them into size categories. So let's say this is a large ship, and large ships move up to 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can always turn. There's no orientation as such. And then let's unleash a blast against the Enterprise. So our range is 1, 2 spaces. All ships have a range of 3 spaces, generally speaking. Very small ships have a range of 1, but for these purposes it's 3. So, and how many attacks do we get? Well, with a large spaceship we get 3 attacks. So what we do is we draw 3 attack cards. 3 attack cards. Each of the suits represents a different part of the ship. So a spade represents an attack against the propulsion system, and a heart represents an attack against the crew or ship systems. What you do is you add suits together, so that's a value of 16 and that's a value of 2. But when you have an attack of 16, you always discard all but the last digit. So that 16 becomes a 6. So 2 and 6. In defence, the Enterprise has got 3 shields, but -1 because of the range. As the range reduces, the number of shields you can deploy also reduces. It makes them less effective. So 2 from the Enterprise, a 6 and an ace. The value of these shields is always the face value. So in this case, the 6 can be used against the 2 because it beats it, but nothing beats the spade. The ace is useless. So in this case, a propulsion hit has gone through. We record a propulsion hit against the Enterprise, and you can do this in any way you like. I'm going to show you some tokens now. I made these up. You can download the similar tokens from the Wombat Wargames website, or you can just make up your own. I made some up initially using these small tokens because my ships are a bit smaller, and these are just MDF painted. But as I say, you can download them. You can also just photocopy the examples in the back of the book. So our Enterprise has taken a hit to its propulsion system. The warp engines are gone. They cannot take it, Captain. Here we go. There you go, you can see. And as a ship takes damage, you just put more tokens down. The number of tokens that a ship can take depends on its size, and in this case, as I say, they're large. They can take 3. They can take 2, and then the third one will destroy a ship. That's 3 of the same type. So, not putting up with this, the Enterprise is going to hit back. Propulsion's compromised, so our movement is halved. 1 goes down to 1.5, always round down, so now we only move 1 space, but that's close enough. We'll come to close quarters and attack this Klingon. Okay, so the Enterprise has used its remaining movement to move in and is going to attack. 3 phaser shots. 1, 2, 3. Ooh, a joker, very good. The hit there is to the weapons, and the hit there is to the shields. However, because that's a 10, and you always discard the first digit, that becomes a 0. So all cards of 10 or multiples of the same suit that add up to 10 will always miss. So that gives you your hit and miss system. In this case, we've got a hit to the weapons on the Klingon ship. The Klingon ship will respond. Shields are 3 because it's a large ship, but -2 because of the range. So I only get 1 card in response, and this is my shield. Fail. So it's a hit to the Klingon weapon systems. At the same time, I've got a joker in hand. Jokers are really useful. When you draw a joker, you can either put it back in the deck and take another card, or you can play it at the end of the hand to remove damage. So it's a damage control. Very good. We've been working hard. We've managed to get our engines back into commission. And now it's the Klingon's turn again. Sadly, we've now got our 1 weapon hit. That halves our weapon capability. 3 shots now becomes 1 because the 1.5 rounds down. So I've only got 1 shot. 1 shot is not really going to do me much good. So what I'm going to do now is shoot first. My 1 shot, which is a 5 of spades. against the Enterprise's 1 shield, and it's only 1 because it's 3 minus 2 for the range. Fail. Oh, curses. So the Enterprise has got the hit again. We haven't moved yet, so I'm now going to move with the Klingon. 1, 2, 3, and escape, because the Enterprise can't catch me because it's reduced to 1, and my weapons are reduced to a single shot, so I don't really stand much chance in this particular battle. So in that encounter, what's going to happen now is the Klingon will retreat and escape, and the Enterprise has got to repair its engines before it can continue. And that's basically how the game works. Okay, I've set up a little battle here, so there's a few more ships involved and different types. What I'm going to do with these is I'm going to use these ships, which actually came with the Red Alert game, which are nice ships. They're quite pleasingly designed, and they're conveniently red and green, so you can see them easily. And this is the Red Alert grid. Now, it's actually quite a small grid. It's a little bit smaller than the 13 by 13, but not much. And you can use much smaller grids if you want. You don't have to have big grids. I'm also going to use my my smaller, which you can see here, damage markers. Now, you don't actually even have to use damage markers if you don't want. You could take a pen and paper and just record damage. It's easily done. I know some people have said that they where can you get the markers? And they go, well, you can download them, as I've said before. I found them quite easy to make. Again, we'll go a black team, which can be green in this case, and the red. You shuffle the cards at the start of the game. If you work through the pack, you just reshuffle the discards. I'll put them there for now. Okay, so who's going to go first? Let's imagine red goes first. Now, I've set both up to be a variety, so you've got each of the spaceship, the core spaceship types. There are actually about 3 or 4 dozen spaceship types in all, but on the whole, there are these core types. And these are small ships, which are, I call interceptors. So they represent your typical kind of Viper fighter or your little X-Wing kind of thing. And in general, each ship represents something like a flight of 3 or 4, because the relative size of the ships, you can't really imagine that being host to many of those, but we'd like to think they were. So I imagine these stand in for a whole squadron. The biggest ships are massive ships. The next size are large, and the others are small. So small, medium, large. Small, medium, large, and massive. I'll start with red. Are massive ships, and I can choose any ship to move in any order, so they all get one go. The massive ships have a move of only 3. So 1, 2, 3, which is enough to put me right next to that medium-sized enemy. So they're going to get a walloping. I will attack them. Again, the very largest ships get 4 attacks. So massive ship, battleship in fact, gets 4 attacks, 4, 2, 3, 4, straight off the top. And there we go. If you draw the same suit, you put them together. So 10, 5, 6 makes a total of 21. So that's an attack of 1. 5 of hearts is an attack of 5. The 1 is against the propulsion. The 5 is against the crew. In reply, well, this chap's only got 2 shields. -2 for the range means that, in theory, 0. But so long as you've actually got shields that are working, you always get at least 1 back. And it draws a 7. So the 7 can be used against either of these. And I'm going to use it against the, it says it's only 1. I can defeat the 1, and I'll take the hit on the heart. which is crew. Discard. Discard face up. You don't have to move and then shoot. You don't have to shoot and then move. You can split move. I'm going to show that with this medium-sized ship. Now, a medium-sized ship has a move of 5. So 1, 2, 3. Shoot at the same target. I've only got 2 attacks. Ooh, 9's a good card. That's a miss because it's a 10. And the 9 of spades is a 9 against the ship's engines. Draw a card in response. Joker. Joker's very interesting. A joker can be used to make a repair once the hand has been played. And in this case, what I can do is I can take it, because I have no way of avoiding it, and then once that's played, which it now is, I can then take either of these off. So I don't have to take the spade off. I could take the heart. I'll take the heart off because I would sooner. I don't need too much movement now because we're at close quarters. But on the other hand, I do want to retain my crew. And what happens if you don't retain your crew is it stops you actually acting, which is never a good thing. I've only moved 3 with that, so I've got 2 left, so I'll move out to there. And that's called a split. So I've split move. I've moved 3, shot, and then moved 2. And you can do that with any ship. It gives you one of your basic tactics because the very fast ships are very vulnerable, so you don't want them to be close to the enemy. But the bigger ships are much more solid, and in particular the battleships, which have got more shields. I'll just move this interceptor next. Interceptor moves 6, so 1, 2, 3, shoot, 4, 5, 6. Strictly speaking, I should have worked it out there, but that just is a little bit easier. Interceptors only have a range of 1, but they have a move of 6, so they can go in and come out again very easily. Here's my 1 shot. Oh, Joker. Joker's not much use to me here because I don't have any damage, and a Joker can always be put back in the pack. And I missed anyway, curses. Having missed, there's nothing more to work out, but because I drew a joker and didn't play it, I replaced it with another card. I take the entire deck and I reshuffle it. And the reason I do that is because it keeps the jokers in play. There are only 2 jokers in the deck, although I seem to be remarkably good at drawing them today. But it does mean that you've got that opportunity to make repairs. And so on. I'll just quickly work through the rest. I mean, this is a large ship, so a large ship has 3 attacks and a move of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to pick on this guy. I know it's mean, but you know. So 3 attacks. Oh, for goodness sakes! I'll retake. 1, 2, 3. So I've got a 5 and I've got a 2. In reply, we know that this chap's only got 1 back, 6, so he can beat either of these. If he wants to retain some movement, he's going to have to beat that. But that's a shield hit. Diamonds are a shield hit. So let's imagine we want to retain some movement and we take a hit to our shields. Never a good thing. Because a joker was drawn, I have to reshuffle the deck again. Quickly do. There we go. I'm not sure what difference it makes with the shield. That's got a shield hit. This only has 2 shields, so it's normal. It normally would have two cards. It's now halved, so it only draws 1 card. It can only draw a maximum of 1 card. The result of that means that you don't really need to be at any distance. You'll be as effective at long range as you will at short range. However, I've only got interceptors still to move, and they need to be within 1 to make an attack. I can't move the interceptor into a space and shoot, or leave it in a space, but I can move through a space. So what I'm going to do is 3, 4, I'm going to move through my own ship, which you can do. Interceptors can always move through ships from either side. They're not, they're so small, they can do that. Other ships can't move through other enemy ships unless they take a collision test, which is relatively simple, but they can move through them into an open space beyond. You can't land in the same space as another ship. In this case, I've just moved to here. I'm going to take one attack against these guys. Oh, not good. Not a good attack card. and not a good defense card. That doesn't beat that. The shield needs to beat the attack for it to work. So I've actually scored a hit against the weapons. So this ship is now half, half and half. Broadly speaking, one hit to a system halves the effectiveness of that thing. So you're now half shields, half propulsion and half weapons. That's in quite a bad way. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut to a bit later in the game to show you how the damage stacks up and what effect it has. Okay, so we come back and the game has progressed a little. Ships have been destroyed. The destroyed ships are replaced by debris, which I've used these particular. You can use anything, but this is a bolt action blast marker, which you normally use to record casualties. I just use them to represent debris because they're quite visual. Once ships are destroyed, they're replaced by debris. Debris does move around from turn to turn and can move into ships and cause damage. If you move into them, you also suffer damage. So they become part of the battle. Casualties have been taken on these ships. So we have here a systems hit, a systems and propulsion, and so on. The different ships can all, on the whole, ships take 3 casualties, but the smallest ships can only take 2 of any one kind. So let's fight our greens. These guys have got two hits, but that's a battleship. It's i.e. the massive ship, and battleships, they always ignore the very first hit they take for each of these of the functions. So we ignore that hit to our shields and we ignore that hit to our systems, so we're still fighting at full strength. And what we're going to do is just move 1, taking our casualties with us, shoot on the opposing battleship, and then move 2, 3 away, because we want to exploit the fact that this battleship could potentially be slowed down. So I'm going to shoot, so I've still got 3 shots, hoping for a spade. No, I've got a spade, but it's a 10, so it's a miss. But I've got an 8 and a 2. The battleship target also ignores the hit to its propulsion, but has now got 2 hits to contend with. I've got 4 shields at the range of 0, of 1 space in effect. I get a -2 modifier. The -2 modifier means I've got 2 back, both of which are useless. So I can't defeat any of those, so I now take a diamond and a heart. That's not such a disaster, simply because with these battleships you always ignore, as I say, the first casualty to each type. So it's far better to have 1 of each because you can ignore it. But still, that's quite a lot of damage. That's quite a good round there for the green team. This interceptor is going to shoot at the enemy interceptor and then try and skedaddle, but I'm compromised here. So it's just 1 attack. Oh, curses, which misses, because 10s will always miss. Nothing to do there. I've got a move reduced to 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to bring them back over here. And this green guy has got a heart. It's a system hit. It's a medium-sized spaceship, so that does affect it, which means I have to take a test in order to move. And what I do is I draw a card. if the card corresponds to any damage I've taken, including the heart, I don't get to move that turn. Basically, you lose your turn. That means that if I'd got more damage, let's say I've got a spade as well, then, let's just show it temporarily, if I'd drawn a spade, it would have also been no-go. So the more damage you've got across your whole spaceship, the more likely you are to miss your turn. And in this case, I drew a heart, so I've missed my turn. Because I've missed my turn, that's to say I've not activated, I automatically get to make a damage control roll, a damage control draw. A damage control draw, take a card. If the card corresponds to any damage you've taken, you take a damage off. In this case, no. That's it. That's all that ship can do this turn. In response to the red guys, let's see if we can nobble our nemesis here. 1, 2, 3. The interceptor has a move of 6. One shot at one range. Hit to the heart. That's a good one. The green interceptor still gets one shield in response because regardless of the range you always get one if you've got active shields. 4, no good. So I haven't beaten my attack. I've taken a second heart hit, and that means that ship is destroyed because second hits to a small ship and interceptor always destroy. Only takes 2 hits to destroy an interceptor. So that's destroyed. Because it's an interceptor, we don't put down damage, debris. They're too small to cause debris. So I've got 3 left with this. So I can go 1, 2, 3. Let's not do that. Let's go over here and avoid the enemy if we can. That's quite satisfying. My battleship will go next, and it's going to close to the end with the enemy battleship. I'm ignoring all these because battleships can ignore 1. 1, 2. Unleash my phasers, and it's 4 because I'm a battleship. Okay. Unfortunately, great cards individually, but together they add up to 17. So that's a 7, miss, and a 4. The battleship, again, it's ignoring the damage, so it's going to take, you normally have 4 shields, minus 2 for the range is 2. That's a great thing about battleships, they always get to, their minimum becomes 2 because of the halving effect. That's a good roll because the 10, and remember in defence, cards always count their full value, the 10 can beat the 7 and the 9 can beat the 4. Or indeed the other way around. So my shields have held, which is a bit disappointing from the point of view of the red ship. And I've got a move left. Well, I'm not sure there's any real advantage to be gained, but I'm going to come back just to bring myself a bit closer and to enjoy the protection of these for now. I've just got one more ship I'm going to move, which is the large ship, and that's going to shoot and then move. So 1, 2, 3, but shooting at a range of 1 is 3 attacks. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 8 of diamonds. In respond, it'll be 2 minus for the range will be down to a minimum of 1. Joker. Again, a joker. I can take the hit and then repair it, and that's probably the easiest thing to do in this case. So I'll take the diamond hit and then repair it. Sometimes that can be difficult. Let's say, for example, if you already had 2 diamond hits, because as a medium-sized ship, this can take 3. If you take a third, you can't then repair it because your third will destroy you. So sometimes the joker can be used to make to basically take and then repair, and sometimes it can't. So you have to play it by ear. And in this case, we will. That's basically how the game works. And as you can see, there's a kind of a tactic based on moving close, moving far away, depending on whether you want to avoid damage or take damage, and concentrating on one ship, concentrating on the enemy in detail, using the interceptors to zip in once a ship has been knocked out or destroyed. It's worth bearing in mind that, let's say I'd got two hits to the battleship on the, let's imagine those aren't there for a moment, on the shields. That one's ignored, but this one still affects it. So normally I have 4 shields down to 2, but I can now zip in with a interceptor, make my shot, and because I'm shields reduced, this now is down to a single response, because 2 minus 2 down to a minimum of 1. So my attack here would be, say, 6, oh, and I've beaten it. But then you can zip out again. So battleships, once they start to take damage, become a lot more vulnerable, and a reserve of interceptors can be used to pile in damage to something that's already vulnerable, and so on. And that's kind of gives you a game. The larger the map you play on, this is quite small, but the larger you play on, let's say 30 by 20 or 30 by 40 spaces, the more ships you can accommodate and the more room you've got for manoeuvre and to exploit the differences in the different ships. I played a game recently on a small hex grid, which was about 32 or 33, I think, spaces by about 20, 23. And that gave a very good fleet action game. Most of the games in the book are smaller scenarios, and they're designed for a smaller playing area. But you can play anything. It's a completely generic, completely mutable system. Yeah, okay. Let's talk a bit more about what we might do in the future. Okay, so that's how the basic game works. And to be honest, there's not a lot more to it than that, but it gives you a very good format for doing variation and adding interesting rules and bits and bobs. And a lot of those I've turned into scenarios. There's your book. Now, the core rules are only about thus. You know, it's not very, they're not very complicated. But on top of that, I've added lots of special rules which cover things like close defense, damage control, which we mentioned in the little run through, and yeah, the moving debris about. There are rules for jump drives and light spacecraft, which only takes fewer casualties, massive spacecraft, which take more casualties, space hazards, which sort of represent that, again, that you can download that image, which sit on the table and provide difficulty to movement or problems to navigation. And then there are a number of special ship types which give you special rules in some cases and variant stats. And on top of that, there are the scenarios. I think there are about 10. No, not quite 10. But they're all things like a jump point ambush, where one side has to get to the other side of the table before it's destroyed. Planetary bombardment, where one side has to carry a sort of fusion bomb to the other side of the table before it's intercepted. And a space station attack, which where you have an orbital in the middle of the table and it has to hold out until a relief force arrives. The orbital rules themselves, they provide for a reserve hand of cards which can be played on behalf of the space station. So it gives you an interesting variation. Very tough to beat space stations. On top of that, John Wombat, the publisher of this tome, asked me to write some background for the game. I thought, well, I hadn't imagined writing a background to it originally, but having been given the challenge, I thought, well, that's quite fun. So I did create a background story, which is an interesting example of what you could do if you wanted. And it just provides for each of several factions, I think I did 6, to have a little special rule that makes them unique or different. And I've incorporated those different rules into a campaign system. So if you wish, you can play a series of games. Where are we? Yeah, campaign system. We've arranged it so you can play a series of games over either a day or maybe a few weeks if you prefer. You know, it could just be you get together with a mate, play 3 or 4 games, and that's your campaign. And at the end of each game, winners and losers allocate special technological advances, which are the special rules which apply to the different types of factions. And you build up your advances over the day, and the guy who finishes with the most advances or wins the most games wins the campaign. It's as simple as that. It's not a difficult thing. It's a sort of campaign I've run many times over the years. So there you have it. And the court. I'd like to think that the background section I've done is interesting or entertaining, but as I say, you don't have to use it. The spaceships I've used today are from the Red Alert set, as I've said, and the Star Trek range from Eagle Moss. You can use those, or you can use anything you like. I don't imagine it's a problem. If you want to use the spaceship models associated with the factions that I've described, they are available, and they're on sale from Rulebook Europe. And you can buy them, or some of them at least, because we haven't finished them all yet, from there directly online. So what are we going to do in the future? Well, I've already done some extra scenarios for the Shadows of Centralis magazine, which Wombat Wargames publishes both physically and online every month, which you can download or buy from Amazon. There are two more factions on that, and there's some more background information that we've done and details about the worlds we've invented. And John himself has written a few pieces which are interesting and quite fun. And we hope in the future to sort of build on that and maybe write bits of fiction, because Wombat Wargames, Wombat Publishing is very much a cult publishing-based business, and as well as publishing cult biographies, including some Games Workshop people. I'm threatening to do one, but I think my life is a bit too boring really to make a very interesting book. I could just make stuff up, I guess. But they also publish or republish cult authors such as Poul Anderson, and that's the business model. So in many ways, this is a cult SF game. The character of this game is very much in the line of classic SF of the 50s and 60s. Star Trek's not a bad analogy, because that in itself grew out of that sort of science fiction, including things like Forbidden Planet, as I'm sure people are aware. And that's kind of where we are with it. But we've got plans. We'll be making more spaceships, as I said, and we'll be publishing more scenarios and more special rules going into the future. So I hope you'll give it a go. It's quite a fun game. It's not a complicated game. That was my original intention. There are lots of complicated science fiction games out there. If you enjoy complicated, lots of detail, lots of recording, lots of time spent sort of games, play those. That's fine. I don't mind. This isn't one of those. This is something that can be played very quickly. Generally speaking, the bigger games tend to last us maybe an hour or 45 minutes. They sometimes last us a bit long because we spend more time talking than we do playing, drinking tea and eating biscuits, but then that's a vital part of any Starship Commander's training, I tend to think. So there you go. Space battles. Thank you very much.